We have, just double checking, we've got, let me look at my list again. After Abby, Matt, and then Kelly. Cheers.
Right here. Closing it now.
Okay. All right, good. And we may see the door open and some people try to come in again, young future farmers who are going to just stop in and say hello towards the end of our half hour. But I don't know, I guess we'll have to ask them to wait till we're done because of the room capacity issue. Anyway, go ahead.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Chair Durfee. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I've actually been here all week in the State House taking part in the Vermont Leadership Institute through the Snelling Center in Government. And now I get this chance to take all I've learned and put it into action. My name is Abby Long. I'm the Executive Director for the Kingdom Trail Association. Kingdom Trails is a nonprofit trail network. We're located up in Vermont's beautiful Northeast Kingdom. Isn't that right? Our trails extend throughout and even connect Caledonia County and Essex County. We are world-class, 100-plus mile multi-use. So we do, that was this representative's questions, we do allow horses in some areas, all season and all level of ability trail network. And we are deeply intertwined with our local community, and we are celebrating 30 years this year. We were founded in 1994 on old logging roads, Jed. So very traditional industry in the kingdom that we still recognize. Please know that Kingdom Trails recognizes that we are founded and built upon the lands first inhabited by the indigenous people of our region, which is the Abenaki. And we are now grateful to 105 private landowners who so generously allow our trails to cross their properties. These landowners, neighbors after neighbors, they're my own neighbors even, they see the vision, they see the asset, they see the positive impact that our trails are having in one of the most socially and economically challenged regions of our state, and quite frankly, of our country, as the Northeast Kingdom is a federally designated REAP zone due to our declining population and geographic isolation. Now, the impact of Kingdom Trails has proven to be significant throughout communities who host the trails. That's Burke, Lindenville, Kirby, and East Haven. And nothing is more profound, as Tommy and Nick shared, the critical mental and physical benefits of that outdoor recreation offers. Yet the trail user experience truly extends beyond the network and into the community fabric and tourism infrastructure that surround it. KT welcomes well over 100,000 plus visitors to the region each year. 84% of those visitors are coming from out of state, and 38% are actually our neighbors to the north in Canada. These trail users are generating an estimated $10 million in direct spending. Spending that Kingdom Trails doesn't receive, that's all just getting pumped right into the Northeast Kingdom. And this spending supports over 200 direct jobs with earnings over $5 million annually. And on a broader scale, KT elevates the kingdom as an exemplary place to live, work, and play. Showcasing our region as a desirable place to live can assist area businesses in recruiting a workforce. Just like Tommy, I moved from Colorado with my husband, who's now a special ed teacher at Bricktown School, and we are growing our family. The CEO of NVRH, the local hospital in St. Johnsbury, has stated last week in House Commerce that his #1 recruiting tool to gain new doctors, nurses, and admin is Kingdom Trails. And this is, I'm just tooting my horn right now, but Kingdom Trails last month, we have the trail that is rated #2 in the world. There was only two trails on that top 10 list that were in the US, and Vermont has one of them.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm very proud of that. Yet we know these numbers have increased and changed significantly. The earlier presentations alluded to the pandemic, how people flocked to trails to lift their spirits, fortified their body during that isolating pandemic. The numbers I shared came from a 2016 Vermont Trails and Greenway Council economic impact study, and I'm no longer confident in those numbers, and I need those numbers. I'm desperate, quite frankly. There's not a grant that I write that I depend on that don't point to the remarkable impact our trails have in the Northeast Kingdom communities. grants that are absolutely necessary for maintenance and stewardship to build rural resiliency. KT has recently pursued and was even awarded multiple USDA federal grants to conduct studies to support driving sustainable growth for our communities. These studies, I'm very proud of, public engagement were at the core of these studies, created recommendations for the needed supportive infrastructure, strategies to address the growing number of users and imbalances throughout our network, plus improving the quality of life and safety in the region. Even a new NEK outdoor recreation community hub that's going to be built soon. These solutions will allow us to continue to have a community that's built around outdoor recreation and thriving. And I ask the state to right-size investment and stewardship to continue this momentum, striving towards these solutions I just listed, so KT can continue the economic, the public health, and the conservation benefits that trails allow. And again, those opportunities are made possible by the 105 private landowners who so generously and without compensation make their properties available. And KT's not alone. Nick and Tommy said 70% of Vermont's public access trails are on private land and dependent on the benevolence of private landowners. With increased demand on our trail assets, nonprofit trail stewardship organizations like KT face more and more challenges in retaining that public access. And we need your support, specifically in H673 that includes a comprehensive economic impact study of how Vermont benefits from outdoor recreation, both on the state and my level, the community level. This study will result in concrete recommendations of many aspects of outdoor recreation, including how we as a state invest in trail maintenance and stewardship. And this question of how we develop an appropriate mechanism to recognize private landowners will be a critical component of how we retain public access to Vermont's trail system. So I do ask, please support Kingdom Trails and our private landowners by supporting this legislation. So, pretty low maintenance. I don't know, a PowerPoint? That's good.
Thank you. That doesn't mean you're off the hook for questions.
I'm here. Yes, Jed.
Just a quick one.
Mhm.
Where's the #1 trail in the world located?
It's, the number one. Nick, do it. I don't think it's in the country. It's,
No, it's not.
yeah.
The ones in country, you said there were 3?
No, there's only 2. The other one in the top
Oh,
10
yeah,
ones.
where in the world?
Whistler?
2 different questions, I think.
Oh, the organization's called Trail Forks, which is it's user generated. It's like the #1 app for maps and for mountain biking. All mountain bikers.
Well, we're waiting for Nick to pull it
Yeah.
up. Your point about the economic impact draws, whether principals, I've been on hiring committees,
Mhm.
you know, there's no question Vermont, our outdoor recreations that draw all over. And then what was brought up before break had to do with housing for those. So that's the recreation has to move forward, but we also have a lot of investment in housing and they would
Mhm.
go hand in hand on this.
It is a tension point, absolutely. Kingdom Trails relies on almost 30 seasonal staff in the summer months for trail maintenance, ambassadors, and just welcoming guests in general. And we're finding it harder and harder to hire each summer, to the point where I bought 2 historical homes in downtown East Burke and I'm renovating them for workforce housing
Wow.
for my own staff. Mhm.
Thank you, Abby. John,
Just what is the number, what part of the trail system is your #2 trail?
It's in Essex County. It's, the #2 trail, it's called Black Bear, and it's in Essex County in our Moose Haven region of our network. Yeah, it's really special. It's a great trail.
Read the description and
Sure.
down the elusive black bear, the trail evokes a sense of wilderness and adventure, offering riders the opportunity to immerse themselves in the lush forests and diverse terrain of the Northeast Kingdom. The climb up this trail may be a challenge for some. The grind is undeniably worth the reward that waits.
Sounds like a good field trip.
Oh, that's, yes.
Great idea.
There you go.
Mhm. I know this is House Ag, but that section of our trail network, I said we were founded on old logging roads, but It also serves as an incredible example. I'll be testifying on Friday for this, but an incredible example of where the logging industry and the outdoor recreation industry complement each other. And they actually have a lot of synergy together. They can interact together. That you don't have to, landowners, private landowners don't have to have one or the other. So that's awesome.
All right, let's
Thank you, guys.
come up then. Thank you, Abby.
I'm going to scoot out and go back to class now. I am grateful.
Thank you.
Guys, for-
Welcome.
Thank you all for having me. Yeah,
You've been able to hear the conversation up to this point.
yeah.
Happy to hear what you've got to add.
Thanks. My name's Matt Williams. I'm the executive director of the Catamount Trail Association. Thanks for having me. We're a backcountry skiing focused nonprofit in Vermont. We're turning 40 this winter. The Catamount Trail is an end-to-end backcountry ski trail in the state, like the winter version of the Long Trail that was founded in 1984. And we manage that and a growing network of backcountry ski zones around the state. We're actively engaged in conservation. And we have a whole suite of community and youth programs to build access to the sport. And our goal is really engaging in sustainable and equitable access to the outdoors, world-class resources that are conserved for the long haul and future generations, and programs that reduce barriers to access for those resources, because we really believe in the power of outdoor recreation and being in the woods to build community and enhance people's lives and relationships with the land and connections to the landscape. So it's sort of a bit about our work, but I'm here today to really speak to a project that we did recently called the Vermont Backcountry Ski Handbook, and the model that I think that can set for the BMP portion of the work that's proposed in this bill. I have a couple of copies here that I'm happy to leave behind. It's also available online on our website and through Forest Parks and Rec and the Green Mountain National Forest, who are our two partners on this as the big public land managers in the state. The goal of this handbook is to really codify best management practices for backcountry ski development in the state. But I think it goes beyond. I think BMPs in general do a really great job of helping professional trail builders and nonprofit trail organizations and state and federal agencies build really good trails from a technical standpoint. What this resource does that I think existing BMPs often don't do is that it speaks to community members. It speaks to foresters. It speaks to Fish and Wildlife and other interests and stakeholders who care about the landscape. And really what it set out to do, we were having all these conversations with the state, with the Forest Service, with private landowners, and skiers would come to the table and they think they were talking about one thing, right? They had an image in their mind of what backcountry skiing looked like. And we would talk to land managers or ecologists who thought they were showing up to build a ski area, right? And the reality is somewhere in the middle. Similarly, backcountry skiers would think, well, this is dispersed recreation's allowed everywhere. I can go ski in the woods. I'm not doing anything, right? It's harmless. And why are there any hurdles to this? What are the what are the holdups? And land managers would say, well, we have all these other considerations and there's all these other interests. And there just was, people were speaking different languages. They had different understandings of what the process should look like, what the barriers and hurdles really were. And so the goal of this document was to really create a common language for the various stakeholders on the landscape. First and foremost. The secondary goal was to say, we know what it takes to build a world-class trail network, but we also know that it's about more than just the trails. It's about trailhead, it's about parking, it's about facilities, it's about long-term stewardship plans, it's about thinking about search and rescue and coordinating with those folks. It's about accessibility. There's all these other factors. Building a trail isn't just building a trail, because we know that if we put in a backcountry ski zone like Brandon Gap or like the one in Willoughby State Forest, that people are going to show up, and a lot of them are going to show up, which is a great thing in a lot of ways, right? That's what we want. We know it. The communities love it. The users love it. but it creates challenges too. And they're not mysteries. They're anticipated. It's traffic on the roads. It's impact to wildlife. It's impact to the forest. So, how can we set people up to have those conversations ahead of time, and how can we set people up for success in those conversations, both from our end as a user and from the land manager standpoint, whether that's a public entity or private entity. And I think the end result of that we've seen is sort of like really a community building tool as much as it is a best management practice, right? Of course, the nuts and bolts are in there, right? How wide are you cutting this thing? Which trees are you cutting? Which ones are you leaving? What silviculture considerations do you need to take into consideration? What are the resources you need to be connecting with around rare and endangered species and different forest types and all those sorts of things? But really, it's a tool, if you're in a community and you say, hey, I visited one of these zones, why can't we have that here? What this does is give you insight into what other communities have learned, and to say, okay, you're starting here as an individual. What are all the steps you need to take from there to implementing this thing? How do you get people involved? How do you build support? How do you figure out what type of land management structure you're dealing with and what they're going to care about and who you need to talk to around that? How do you get financial support? How do you, talk to the people you need to talk with? How do you actually cut the thing and build the thing? And then how do you steward it after you've built it? And how can you learn from, what other communities have done? So I think it really, we've found it to be very impactful. It's new, but I think it's been very well received both within the state and frankly, nationally. I think it has created a unique example. There's not a lot like this out there. But I think it serves as a real proof of concept for the type of process that Trails and Greenways Council is really excited to engage in. We've done it here in Vermont. We've had that nonprofit state federal partnership to make it happen. And I think it sets a great example and sort of opens the door to doing that. This is obviously sort of user specific to backcountry skiing, but it sort of sets the example and creates the roadmap for how we can do this for recreation, trail bikes recreation writ large with some support. It's not easy. This took us 4 or 5 years to put together, sort of with just existing staff within the CTA and the Forest Service and the state. And it's for a particular user group, but I think with some resources, it's eminently doable and could be really impactful for Vermont community. So really excited to be here to speak to that, and thanks for having us.
Let's see, time for a couple of questions, Dave.
Try to make it quick, and I'm not sure how relevant this is, but I'm wondering where in your program you acknowledge gentrification. For example, you brought up Willoughby State Forest. It was a big contentious thing in my district and community regarding building out the facility. Right? And so now we have, just as you said, a lot more people coming in, a lot more people interested in moving into the area, generational families leaving. I mean, we're having this big problem right now, right? So how, like when this goes wrong, so how do we prevent that from happening?
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's, I appreciate that. And, I don't know that I can say this guide really speaks to that specifically, but I think, and I don't know how much any set of BMPs really can sort of solve that problem, other than sort of the emphasis that certainly we have placed in this around community input and conversations, right? And obviously sometimes those can be contentious and they don't, you don't end up with a solution that everybody's happy about. But I think that's a critical part of the process. We certainly speak to it here. It's something that we really push with our projects. But I think that tension is certainly there. And I think the only thing, and it sort of is not really a BMP related answer, but I think we think about it a lot as an organization, is just sort of understanding ourselves in context that like, we love backcountry skiing. We think it's great. Like, you know, but we're not the only use on the land, and just really, we work with a lot of, a lot of timber parcels and logging companies and other users, and just recognizing that there's a give and take there, and that we're often not the most important thing, and we need to, we're closing trail sections all the time because, a logging operation needs to happen, or, whatever, I think it's incumbent on the recreation community to both, tout the benefits, of which there are many, but also recognize that it's not always the right answer, or in a particular place, it's not always the right answer all the time. It's part of a larger mix. So.
That's good.
All right. Good. Well, thank you. I read maybe in one of our local media about the 40th anniversary and how the founders or the creators of the trail were going to try and ski it.
Yeah, they're headed out tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from the Massachusetts border and
That's
making
not
it. No, yeah, I get to.
Young to be a.
All due respect.
She was a baby when they started it.
Yeah.
That was.
I'll confess, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Paul Jarris, who went on to be state health commissioner, and Ben Rose, who, obviously works for the state currently, emergency management. Both are out there right now getting ready. So yeah.
40 years.
I hope so.
Thank you. Kelly?
Live, so I'm gonna do the Zoom. It was up there.
While you're getting that set up, Kelly, I noticed somebody came in on Zoom, maybe a future farmer. Somebody popped in briefly and
Yeah.
Oh, because they were supposed to be at 2:45 before, right?
wasn't expecting that anybody come in on Zoom for that, but.
It's working. For the record, I'm Kelly Ault. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance. Thank you for having me today and for having this conversation and discussion on H673. So I'm here to talk to you about the outdoor business sector. It's been wonderful to hear a summary and get a comprehensive overview of all the other partners in the state that are managing and stewarding our recreation resources. And what I can share with you today is looking at the industry side of the picture. The Vermont Outdoor Business Alliance, just for some background about our network, is a statewide nonprofit organization that was established in 2018. It is dedicated to strengthening, expanding, attracting, and retaining outdoor recreation businesses in the state. We educate Vermonters about outdoor recreation. We work with our companies in every community to identify collaboration and business development opportunities. And the businesses involved in VOBA are very dedicated to advancing diversity, equity, inclusion in the workplace, as well as in outdoor spaces. The members of VOBA are involved in legislative policy that affect their businesses, their employees, their customers, and their communities. And they're very committed to investments in the natural and recreational landscape, as they see that as the foundation for which their livelihood and their prosperity is built upon. Since we were formed, and we were formed alongside and the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative, so we have always worked closely with VORAC and been a voice for identifying some of the needs and opportunities to invest and grow outdoor businesses. We also work closely with the Vermont Trails and Greenways Council and collaborated in many ways in our shared needs and interests in the landscape. Our 135 outdoor businesses range the gamut. It's a highly diversified industry. You've heard those numbers in terms of our economic impact, and so I won't go into those too deeply, but it really does touch every community, and it involves retailers, manufacturers, resorts, operators, guides, trail builders, outdoor creators. You name it, if they produce a product or service that an outdoor recreationist or a resident needs to enjoy the outdoors, then they're likely here in one of our communities. There are businesses that directly produce these products and services. There are those that are adjacent, and many of those examples have come up, such as the country store that's serving lunch. And then there's the CEO of the health center the hospital that is an example of the many businesses that are located here or choose to expand their business in Vermont because they can attract employees, they can retain the employees, and they are able to contribute to a quality of life in their community that they value, that they have that as a bottom line and a value as a business. So the economic numbers, you've seen them all many times. So what I'll just do is just point you to the manufacturing, retail, and accommodations and services bullet, because these numbers have grown significantly. And yes, we have had a few years to settle from the pandemic. But I will say that these numbers in the outdoor economy have been steadily growing and been significant for our state since the BEA started tracking numbers in 2017, thanks to now Senator Sanders at the time. I mean, Welch, I'm sorry, as a representative, he was the lead sponsor on the bill that set up the tracking of the outdoor recreation numbers. And we're grateful for that because we do have these numbers that show that we're surpassing $1 trillion in the national economy, and that our state is leading the way in many ways. We have an outdoor workforce that is growing. It is the highest percentage growth nationwide. However, we do have some areas of improvement in supporting wages and compensation for the sector. And that has been an area that BOBA and other partners have been dedicated to think through what are these jobs? How can we support career advancement, professional development, training, so people can stay in the state, grow and work here, and make livable wages and see this as a career pathway. So I wanted to just mention that because it is probably one of the areas of investment and the recommendations that part of our work with Moving Forward Together Vermont will identify, and that we have opportunities to really support a workforce that can allow us to take advantage of all these opportunities that we've laid out for you today. I feel like I would be remiss not to mention the flood impact and climate resiliency that has predominated that sector. Not only have the floods been significant in certain areas of the state in the past year, but the prolonged summer rain and our fluctuating winter conditions have really made serious and made urgent the addressing the need to become a climate ready workforce. Climate ready sector. And we did several studies, you can see, and in August and December, the responses were the same in that the community, the businesses saw significant physical and economic injury losses in every county. And a lot of that was in physical structures, inventory, and assets. You can see here, Hillier Outdoor, Onion River Outdoors being a perfect example. A lot of our retailers, a lot of our businesses that operate in our downtowns. But most importantly, you can see that many businesses in the sector reported losses due to economic injury and the inaccessible roads, the closed recreation, the waterways that were contaminated and couldn't accommodate rental businesses for paddle boats or instruction, Lake Champlain. So we are still addressing those losses, and businesses are still trying to figure out how to become whole. A number of programs were available. They were limited, so there are significant unmet needs. For example, the Business Emergency Gap Assistance Program funded about 20 out of 500 businesses in the outdoor sector, giving them grants, and in some cases, $1,500 when a business had lost $150,000. So we do, I bring this up because it gets at some of this infrastructure that we've been talking about on the economic side, that we have all of these businesses that are core and critical to the economic impact and the resiliency of our downtowns, and supporting their needs in covering from the floods, as well as their desire to invest in themselves, in innovations, in structural changes and adaptions, so they can be prepared and navigate the future uncertainty of our weather and of the participation patterns that are to come. BOBA has a legislative committee, and I'm not going to go into our policy pillars, but I just wanted to point out a few which relate to the work we're talking about today and 673, and that we really support kind of this climate ready sector. And you'll see in that last pillar, the infrastructure investments in our recreation, conservation, and communities are imperative. And the economic impact study will allow us to see where those opportunities are, where the interlinkages are between business and recreation and community, and how we can work together to shore them up for the future. So the businesses that are involved are very committed to not only investing in businesses and marketing the businesses that we have in the state, so we continue to bring people here and showcase what we have, but also in making sure that we've done some innovation and investments that will help us for the next 10 years, not just the next season or the next summer. So just getting to 673, we're excited to be involved in the collaboration around the economic impact study. Some of the bullets here will involve businesses in terms of identifying what are those economic impacts. And we've talked about a lot of geographic clusters of recreation resources and businesses. And so I just wanted to emphasize the desire to have the data drill down from what we know about BEA or what we might know from individual communities to really looking systematically at those economic impacts and identifying the geographic numbers and the differences and those businesses and those recreation resources that are involved. I think that it will allow us to see differences in our rural and urban communities. We have population centers. We have destinations that are known and popular for recreation, and we have small communities that are emerging and have really pivoted their economies to be the next destination. We have examples like Poultney that have gotten an economic grant from VORAC that have really decided to focus on outdoor recreation. And we have seen just in the last year, a second bike shop open, and the original bike shop that was there expand their manufacturing business of bicycle components and gears. Bicycle gear and apparel. So we are seeing businesses really taking advantage of the opportunities that they have in front of them to expand and grow. The other benefit that we see is really allowing us to look 10 years down the road and determining our future and being able to plan for that and determine what investments might make the most sense that are strategic and allow us to invest in that climate resiliency sector. And not only will it, I guess the other point is clarifying the economic promise of this action, that not only can we lift up those that were affected by the flood so they can, again, get their footing and become prosperous, but also we can invest in those opportunities for the future. And the last slide is really just giving you a vision for what possibly could come out of some of the work that feeds into the economic impact study. And BOBA is also involved in the Moving Forward Together Vermont process, and we'll be working with businesses on focus groups to identify what some of those opportunities are. And we can see a number of recommendations for growth coming out of that process and then being paired with the economic impact study to understand what the potential is for that economic impact. There are so many small entrepreneurs based in rural downtowns and villages that are looking at markets and determining demand for their products, and they're innovating and they're determining new technology and sustainable approaches to business so they can be adaptable in the face of change. They're innovating their production and manufacturing in the state, and they want to be part of the solution in reducing carbon emissions as well as support production in the state. They're expanding their outdoor services, their events, their facilities so they can be flexible, and they're building out career pathways to ensure a climate-ready workforce. And that takes partnerships with our education institutions and our nonprofit employers and our for-profit employers to determine what skill sets we need and how those workers of the future can be part of the solution and be moving forward within our state. So these are some of the ideas that we could see becoming recommendations in the economic impact study, and a great way to engage the outdoor sector in the conversation. So just wrapping up with a little bit about Bobo. Like I said, we have 135 members. We estimate that the number of outdoor businesses in the state is between 600 to 800. So there are many out there that have a role to play and have a voice in this conversation. And our board of directors is really leading the charge, representing many different types of companies. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to follow up with me, or if there are if there's any more time for questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you. We're being called to the floor, and this happens, and I apologize to Sharon, who, I'm wondering if we can ask you to come in another time.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Not sure how far you traveled today. We are,
Lucky, it's not clear.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to extend the invitation to have you come in up too if we needed to. But I think just to give you a full hearing, you better not try and
Okay.
and rush if
You
that's.
don't read ahead.